Hello, I am Rob, and let's talk games, shall we? Today is the turn of The Surge 2, follow-up to 2017's original by Deck 13, published by Focus Home. You can click on the top right of the screen now and it'll take you to our review. Okay, so before I get into this review, I need to sort of come clean and give my context for this style of game. Dark Souls style of game in which you play a single character who's very, very human, very easily defeated against waves upon waves of enemies which are incredibly difficult. They can kill you super easy, and the bosses are hardcore difficulty. Not sort of 1980s, 90s platformer difficult, but modern day difficult nonetheless. And the reason, I don't think I need to go into the reason why I don't like him. I'm not a big fan of dark fantasy, so Dark Souls has never really appealed to me. Either Dark Souls, Bloodborne. I did play Demon Souls, but yeah, I never really felt the need to dip in on a sort of extensive level from what I've played here and there. It's never really won me over. But the Surge has always been different. I mean, it's beyond the point of just calling all of these things Dark Souls rip-offs, because the genre has bore it's its own genre now. Whatever you call the genre, I don't know. But this style of game has outgrew being called a rip-off of Dark Souls, I think. But of all these types of games, the one that just really appealed to me most was The Surge, because it is basically it's like Dark Souls met with Tetsuo the Iron Man. Because the core aspect of the gameplay is, it's a sci-fi cyberpunk, as if the gameplay you're seeing on screen didn't give it away, in which you play a character that you create at the beginning of the game, and your entire premise of the game is to basically escape Jericho City. I'm not doing the meme's been done to death, but it's cyberpunk. It's built around this idea that you have to build a sort of a suit of armour basically, and you don't get that suit of armour by picking up bits of armour from your fallen foes and from bosses, although you do, but in a different way, because the combat system is built around this idea of you target a specific part of your enemy's anatomy, head, arms, body, whatever, and in defeating them via cutting that bit of the anatomy off, you get new bits of armour for that area, something which will help you build the armour anyway. And on that note, it keeps the sort of power scaling quite fresh and interesting, and also on a much more probably sadistic level, it's really, really satisfying to cut someone's head off. I can't believe I just said that. I'll cut someone's leg off. I guess that's the sort of monster that video games have made us into, really. But what I really like about this is it's shown, again, I feel like I'm repeating myself so often when I'm talking about these Focus Home published games, but it's an incredibly well put together mid-range game. As in, it's not indie, and it's not sort of super high budget AAA. It's somewhere in between. And what I particularly like about The Surge is its sense of place and world building. In the first game, it was largely, you get in a bit of city, but you also are in a lot of sort of barren areas, desert places, abandoned places. But in The Surge 2, they figured out what works, in the sense of it's in a place, it's literally in the centre of a city, Jericho City, which is completely destroyed, torn to pieces, robots, can't remember the specific term that they use, nanite I think is the specific term, they've gone rogue and they're destroying everything. So you face nanites, which are the rogue robots, and you'll face the humans, which are trying to survive, and they've been, as is the case with sort of a Fallout game, you have people who are trying to strike out for themselves, the gangs and rogues and whatnot, who you will face a lot of, and the robots, which, going back to what I said earlier, you can pick up bits of their anatomy, whether they're robotic or humanoid, and turn it into your armour, basically. But that sense of there is a world here to explore, and the characters here. I mean, I'm not going to say that the characters are especially well written, but it's a step up. It's a marked step up. You are interacting with people. It's not a case of, oh, there's someone, I have to kill him. It's furthering a story. It's got aspects that you can deal with in different ways. It has side missions, not in a really exhaustive way that you'd get in RPGs. Like, let's say, well, maybe Witcher's a bad example, but let's just use The Witcher anyway, because it's the first thing that caught in my head. And just by interacting with the world, you will interact with people's stories and interact with subgroups and whatnot. And also, let's go back to the combat. When it's, you can take people's arms off, you can turn it to your armor, but also a pretty early boss in the police station where you wake up. There's that classic trope of, I don't know who I am, so I've got to figure out where I am, what's going on, and survive it. Like 28 Days Later is a pretty good example of that in movies. But in waking up in that police station, the first decent mini boss, he's not really a boss, is the chief of that police district, and he has a drone. And on that drone, you can attach different powers. You can shoot gun, like it's a gun when you first get it, but you also get other add-ons, I guess you'd call them, which changes its properties. Another one you get, and you'll see lots of sort of notes about it throughout the game, and on the walls, you can put graffiti about the world, so you can leave clues, you can talk to people through graffiti, other players of the game through graffiti. So, as far as developing this game, The Surge 2, it's gone from basically a game which, I'm going to contradict myself here, but the original very much was here is another Dark Souls ripoff, or behold the Dark Souls ripoff, which is trying to be itself, but never quite made it. But at the same time, I did have a soft spot for the first one, because it wasn't just another dark fantasy thing. Whereas the second one has figured out what worked, figured out what didn't, doubled down on it, made the combat really, really satisfying, gave all of the different weapon types a different sense of playing, a different sense of how your character moves about. And it's turned into just something which is missing in the world, a really, really good AA game. And all that's, it kind of feels like I'm damning with faint praise, which isn't my intention at all. I genuinely do believe that this is the sort of thing, this is the sort of game, the AA game, a good AA game, which makes game collections worth having. Well, that's it really, I'm not going to overword it. It's just the sort of thing which really makes games worth playing, because it adds value to your games collection. It's not all AAA, it's something which is, you can just dip your toe in. It doesn't require quite as much obsessiveness. Although it is difficult, it isn't quite as sharp in its difficulty spikes as the other, mainly because it's got very visible signs of how much you can, how successful you can be with other people. It's got leveling systems that, some things like, say, I don't know, level 20, and I haven't had a chance there. You can sort of be a bit more strategic and deliberate about it. So it's not just looking at that thing and not knowing whether you can fight it or not, and just going about it anyway. So it's flawed, of course it's flawed, all AA games are flawed, but I like that Focus Home and all the companies that they publish stuff from are really championing what AA games used to be, and this is a classy example of it. The Surge 2. So, yes, if you like what I had to say or have anything to follow up on what I rambled my way through in this video, please do comment below. Otherwise, do click that like button and subscribe, and click that notification bell, and we'll see you next time for more video games here at the Geek Show.
You can run, little girl. You sure as hell can't hide. That's it, kid. It's over. You're coming with us. Wait, what?